Okay. All right. I'll make it 9:01. So let us get started. So thank you so much for sticking with us, for making it through the previous 8 weeks to the climax of this session, where we're going to bring everything together. So we're going to talk a little bit about zero trust, and firstly, we're going to set the scene of what it is, why it's important, and move into talking about how can we use some of the tools and techniques that we talked about previously to build a zero trust policy. So Julian's going to be running us through that. Obviously, we're joined by the usual team of panelists, and John Harrison, my co-host and master of ceremonies. Please ask your questions in the Q&A. The team like to be challenged. They like difficult questions, and if we can't answer them, then it's obviously a good one. We'll take that away and we'll get back to you.
And even questions from the previous session. So don't feel it's only questions about this. So these are some really brilliant folks that have lots of good things. So ask them questions on URL filtering or DNS security, AI ops, sandboxing. You know.
Yeah, totally. This session is being recorded. All recordings will be available. Unfortunately, we don't have the link to the page where we will host these videos for you, but we will send it out via email, so everybody will get these videos and get access to the content and watch again. Obviously, as normal, next slide, please, Julian. We have the quiz, and if you want to scan the QR code, join the quiz, enjoy the fun. This will be the last one. We'll be doing it different this week, so let's see if we can make this one work, where we actually reveal the winners live on the webinar. So this could be interesting. We've had some fun and games with the quiz and making it work, but yep, scan the QR code. I will start the quiz later. But without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. So I'm going to hand over to Julian to talk to you about zero trust.
Good morning, everybody. So let's just move on to the next slide. So we're just going to start off with a bit of a history about zero trust. Moving in there, a little bit of Bart Simpson for everybody. We've interspersed the slide here with a bit of a view of what computers used to look like and what they're more likely to look like now, just to give everybody a bit of context. We start off in 1994. Zero Trust was coined by Stephen Paul Marsh in his doctoral thesis on computer security. In 2001, we saw the first open source security testing methodology manual released, and that placed a new emphasis upon trust and mechanisms for testing and understanding. In 2007, Palo Alto Networks ships their first next-gen firewall. And in 2010, the term zero trust was made famous by analyst John Kindervag of Forrester Research, essentially to denote stricter cybersecurity controls within the enterprise. In 2011, Palo Alto Networks was recognized by Gartner as the leader in its Magic Quadrant for next generation firewalls. And basically, we got there the lovely little 2011 Apple computer, and was at that point, zero trust was very much a matter of you get in the morning, you log in, the system checks the user, checks the machine. Oh, hang on. Sorry, we've gone back. Checks the user, checks the machine and the network, and access control is done at the boundary. And very much the system is built in a manner that implies trust, either for the day or for the session. Mostly due to the fact the way that the systems that we were working with in 2011 were built, it simply wasn't possible to automate or to effectively do anything better. And in 2017, John Kindervag joins Palo Alto Networks and coins the term "people are not packets." Very much keen, if anyone's seen his presentation on zero trust, on the idea that people don't exist on networks, packets do.
And I love this. There should be no trust interfaces on firewalls. It's untrust and untrust. Exact concepts that you're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. And so why do we need zero trust? As we can see here, every single day, companies all over the world and in every single sector. Sorry? You're losing me. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay.
You're all good.
All over the world, in every single sector, are being impacted by ransomware attacks. Ransomware attacks are one of the most visible attacks and the greatest crime wave to impact companies today. banking, hospitals, manufacturing, schools, law firms, tech companies, and logistics. These are such a serious situation that we hope no company ever has to endure. But a single infection is all it takes. An employee working from home, a workload in the data center, or a workload in the public cloud. The adversary gets in, and then it might be midnight or a Friday night. So the attackers in, they move laterally, they take over the entire network, and we are all having a very bad day. It's not my intention to make light of this all, but this is a serious situation on any company that it happens to. But too often, all you see are the headlines, the money of the ransom demands, but there are also critical business impacts that don't get mentioned. The impact and the real implication of a ransomware attack and your business are what matters. Your company comes to an absolute standstill. You can't email or communicate with within your company. You can't pay your employees. You can't locate your patients. You can't manufacture or ship invoices. You can't accept payments for goods or services. And your customers can't make reservations. Customers can't pay bills owed to your company. Or government officers, if you're working in the government sector, come to a complete standstill. The amount of money and the time for recovery are devastating. I had to talk to a healthcare provider that was impacted by a ransomware attack. And I have them here. Oh, sorry. So we'll just move on. Based on 2020 Unit 42 case data, ransomware payments have gone up. Threat actors are getting more creative. And in 2021, the phone rang on average of 5 times with a new client with a new crisis. That's more than 1,300 incidents last year alone. The trends impact are having on a company are quadrupling extortion and ransomware. Ransomware operators are commonly used as many as 4 techniques to pressure the victims into paying. Traditionally, a ransomware with encryption is when the victims pay to regain access to their scrambled data, and compromised computer systems stop working because the files are encrypted. Double extortion involves data theft, and the hackers release sensitive information if a ransom is not paid. This trend took over in 2020. A triple extortion adds denial of service threats as the ransomware gangs launch denial of service attacks and shut down the victims' public websites. And a quadruple extortion adds an additional layer of harassment where cyber criminals contact clients, businesses and partners and employees and the media to tell them that the organization was hacked. Since releasing the ransomware, the threat report earlier this year, based on our incident response case data, we continue to see numbers as ransomware gangs get more comfortable and confident. They are getting more aggressive and bold, expanding their tactics from single to double extortion and triple to quadruple extortion tactics, using fear and intimidation to get organizations to pay quickly. The average ransom demand skyrocketed 518% in the last year to a staggering 5.3 million. In a true show of bravado, the highest demand we saw was 50 million. One of the areas of expertise that Unit 42 has in ransomware investigations and negotiations. While ransoms demand are extortionate, the numbers can usually be negotiated down, but still continue to grow. If there was a bright spot in this report, it's that we actually saw an 80% decrease in the highest ransom paid. Last year, down to 10 million. This year, we've seen a drop to 2 million. So 10 reasons why companies are impacted by ransomware. I mean, just to summarize, should Joe in accounts payable be allowed to download executable files? Should Betty in HR be allowed to post her credentials in a website registered last week? Should William in marketing be allowed to upload company IP to ZippyShare or to some share website? In visibility, we have a lack of visibility into encrypted SSL traffic. We all see that more and more applications on the network are encrypted. This includes everything from Google to every new application that we're using. The application Wild West. Applications are allowed to use port-based firewall rules and SaaS applications and apps running on non-standard ports. Just because an application is running on port 23, we can't make assumptions about what that application is. Lack of zero trust. So flat networks. Whenever an organization has a network that is poorly segregated, has no segmentation on it, this limits the ability of control that we can have. So IoT devices as well, a lack of visibility and protection of vulnerable IoT devices. And also when we look at the attack surface reduction, we have organizations with a lack of control or bad unsanctioned apps that are allowed in the organization. We have a lack of limited file types. We have users allowed to visit malicious high-risk websites and domains. And also we have a lack of vulnerability protection in organizations, often with IPS set to allowed, because there's no ability to better control systems, and they're not preventing vulnerabilities. And also in many systems, we see that they have no ability to prevent unknown threats. Any outdated endpoint security using an organization's antivirus solution, and they can't prevent outbound malicious DNS traffic. They can't deal with the issue of unattended logs. They're often not using user ID because of the way the systems are set up. They're using shared AD accounts, or they're using third-party access. And we've often have a situation where we have organizations that are allowing RDP connections without prior VPN. So we're moving swiftly on that. So when we look at the business and technical and operational benefits, we're often seeing that organizations that have gone through the process of zero trust and made the implementation activities seeing substantial real world impacts. Zero trust has reduced the number of incidents for cybersecurity. It has improved the efficiency of our SOCs, but many people are looking at how to get better value out of their SOC, how to ensure that the SOC is controlling the organization. We're seeing a 43% improvement there. Zero trust has simplified the compliance efforts, and zero trust has also reduced the number of data breaches in many cases by 42%. And zero trust has helped the organization become more agile, and has increased our employees' productivity by making sure that they're better focused on what they need to do, and the access that they're given is focused on their role and the activity that they need to be allowed to do. Zero trust has increased our employees' user satisfaction as well, because they are seeing that their frustration at the level of access they need is basically meaning that they can do their jobs more effectively. And zero trust has reduced our organization's security costs by focusing the access upon what we need to be able to do, and to ensure that we're effectively focusing our resources on the right things to do. So we're seeing a rise in nation state attacks. As you can see there, we're showing a 10 plus publicly attributed cyber attacks per month. We're also seeing a 100% increase in nation state cyber incidents since 2019. You can see that because of the lack of zero trust, there's a constant and inexorable rise in the number of attacks and the impact of those attacks. So zero trust approach is more critical than ever. And we see many organizations in government and in the various sector organizations who are releasing reports both to demonstrate the importance of zero trust, but also to offer guidance. And that's not just Forrester and Gartner, but there are many available sources that we can make available to you. So let's just look at level setting for zero trust. So what is zero trust? Zero trust is removing implicit trust regardless of what the situation is. No matter who the user is, no matter where the user is, no matter what the application they are trying to access. So I'm going to do this in the most strict way possible. Continuous validation of every single digital interaction. The added advantage of this simplicity is you're essentially running the same security regardless of the situation. So zero trust. Never trust, always verify, and protect against stolen IDs. We look at the principle of least privilege. So we want to control lateral movement, and we look at the hostile landscape. We want to ensure that we assume the landscape is hostile and we have the same security controls for the inside and outside, and plan for data breaches and disaster recovery. So also, if you're operating in the government space, the NCSC are offering zero trust architecture design principles to assist public sector organisations in going through this process and ensuring that their readiness can be both set up but also tested on an even basis. So what does NIST say? So the NIST standard 207 says, all data sources and computing services are considered resources. All communication needs to be secure regardless of network or location. And access to the individual enterprise resources is granted on a per session basis, not once. Access to the resources is determined by dynamic policy, including observable state to client identity, application, service, and the requesting asset, and may include other behavioral environmental attributes. The enterprise monitors and measures the integrity and the security posture of all owned and associated assets. No asset is inherently trusted. All resource authentication and authorization are dynamic and strictly enforced before access is allowed. And the enterprise collects as much information as possible about the current state of assets and network infrastructure, communications, and uses it to improve its security posture. So you can see here that access to the resources is determined by dynamic policy, including observable state. And we, moving swiftly on, we can see there how Palo Alto Networks offers the necessary tools to facilitate control and automation of the control and access of this. So you can see here that we've got the wide range of subscriptions that you can make available to ensure that you're controlling the flow of the information and gaining good control and access to the knowledge of the user, the application, and the infrastructure. So, zero trust is an opportunity to modernize and rebuild. The network transformation of the data center and the migration to the cloud and a lack of human resources. Zero trust can be a guiding principle for securing the new environment. Taking this modern, more holistic approach reduces complexity and security sprawl, and these things are caused by point solutions. Therefore, by going with a single platform approach, you eliminate these wastes within your business. So this is the zero trust enterprise. So zero trust is a great approach for security, but many organizations struggle to put it into practice, including where to prioritize. At Palo Alto Networks, we are working to make zero trust actionable for our customers and are focused on 3 pillars. So it's the users, applications, and infrastructure. First, we look at users. We can't assume anything about the users based on where they are, etc. As a general rule, users and their identity are a great place to start when you're thinking about zero trust. Next, we apply the zero trust to the applications. We cannot trust various components of the application. The last, we look at the infrastructure. everything from IoT to the supply chain. These must be addressed from a zero trust standpoint. So this approach provides a holistic and consistent approach to zero trust that can be made actionable across all three key domains. There are many companies in the security industry focused on addressing a subset of these capabilities, but are unable to comprehensively deliver against the full spectrum of zero trust. This is something that Palo Alto Networks is uniquely positioned to deliver through our broad set of best practice security capabilities. We are able to deliver across users, applications, infrastructure, and the exception of the enterprise identity and access management, where we integrate with the solution of choice, in this case, Okta. So in zero trust, you cannot trust any decision that was made previously. You need to recheck everything. That's the role of the SOC. The SOC assumes that all others have failed to provide the right level of trust. So the SOC double checks trust decisions that have already been made using tools focused on behavioral analytics, UEBA, threat hunting, and anomaly detection, correlation rules in the scene, and etc. So through our Cortex portfolio, we have strong capabilities here, including Cortex XDR, Cortex XOR, and Cortex Expanse. We'll talk about these in one of the following sessions, but today we'll just continue on zero trust. So the 5-step methodology for deploying zero trust. Step 1, we define the attack surface. Step 2, we map the transaction flows. Step 3, we build the zero trust architecture, creating zero trust policy. And then we get to the final stage, which is to monitor and maintain. Obviously, this is not the final phase. This is really just where we start.
So Julian, just on
Yes.
The methodology, one of the biggest questions I hear when I talk to customers is like, where do we start? How do we start with this zero trust policy? How do we start with deploying zero trust? Because it's a wide-ranging topic. Do you have a view? And
yeah, so I think that the issue here when you're defining the protect surface is what you want to do first of all is just understand what is it that we're protecting. So what does the organization do, and where are the things that we need to ensure that we maintain protection of? So by defining the protect surface, we understand what we're protecting, so that the following phases can be effective. Just like any form of cybersecurity, you can't protect everything. You can't boil the ocean. You need to first of all understand what it is that the organization needs to protect, so that then the next phases will be effective. Just like any form of risk management, really. So, moving swiftly on. Okay, so the 5-step methodology for deploying zero trust just mapped out a little bit further in detail. We can see there where we were talking about defining the protect surface. Ultimately, what are we trying to protect? We're trying to protect the data within the organization. We're trying to ensure that we understand what the apps are, what the assets are, and what the services are. And when I say services, that could be your identity source, whatever services you have within your enterprise that facilitate business. So you want to map out the transaction flows. So ultimately, when we understand each of the preceding stages, we need to understand what are those transactions that are undertaken that facilitate normal business. We then need to look at architecting a zero trust network. So ultimately, the challenge here will always be about saying, I can't rely on an enterprise network any longer, because the enterprise network really isn't where we exist. We need to consider the whole internet, all of the cloud providers, everything as part of our zero trust network. Then we need to look at creating our zero trust policy. So if we go down here, you can see the Kipling method that we've been working through here. For zero trust, we look at the who, what, when, where, why, and how, so that we can map out the the mechanisms that the Zero Trust policy will use to ensure that we protect the organization. Sorry, next one there. Monitor and maintain. Again, phase 5 here is all about taking the information that is produced by the preceding 4 phases and the information that's been produced by all of the systems that you have on your network and within your business, and make sure that you're continually using that information to improve the effectiveness of your Zero Trust and your protection. You're continually looking at how can I make things better? And again, we're not making any assumptions here. We are looking at the information and basically trying to get to a better understanding and a better set of controls. So Palo Alto Networks can help with a wide range of technical and business consulting services. These capabilities are also supported by our Unit 42 threat research team, but also by our consulting team, who can help you no matter where you are in your Zero Trust journey. This includes discovery and asset identification, architecture, and overall Zero Trust implementation. So now we're just moving on to Zero Trust policy. So as you can see here, we were talking very much about the getting to the identity, because it's essentially if we start with the identity of the users that we have within our organization and our third parties and so on, then we can much more effectively understand how to control access in real time, and also how to automate those controls to make sure that the level of manual interaction is as limited as possible. You can see there that we offer endpoint protection with our Cortex XDR to ensure that your devices are secured and that they're in a known state, but also to make sure that they're producing information that will facilitate better control and understanding of what's going on. We make sure that we've got the user IDs in their cloud identity and all of the information gathered. We talk about multi-factor authentication here because it's become genuinely key. When we look at the identity of any of our users, just asking them to have a long, complex, static password is truly ineffective. Then when we look at the access to apps, so when we look at App ID and SaaS security, it gives you the ability within the organization, the enterprise, to truly understand what you're giving access to make sure that your continual evolving and controlling of the enterprise is effective. Then when we look at the transaction side of things, so we can look at the decryption, the challenges around phishing and malicious websites, the continual protection against C2. So when you look at our DNS security product and its ability to not just ensure that you have a clean flow of DNS, but also to make sure that DNS can't be used as an exfiltration method and can't be used as part of a C2, because of course everybody needs DNS in their organization. Also, if we look at the continual need to protect against ransomware and zero-day threats, and our ability to use the advanced wildfire security subscription to make sure that we are continually checking the information and maintaining the control against zero-day attacks. And then down the bottom there, we've got our data loss prevention to ensure that the controls you have set up within your enterprise are not just making assumptions about what you want to allow or disallow, but are continuing to evolve and are actually keeping step with the business. Okay, so moving on, if we look at the way that this actually exists within our policy. So you might think this is a lot of work to configure and maintain the next generation firewall rule set, but we allow setting up security rules in a very easy and understandable business policy fashion. As you can see here, there are specific policies for sanctioned SaaS applications, risky SaaS applications, and social websites, and so on. Once you understand and get used to how easy it is to create and how simple and effective the security rules are, you can take advantage of the policy optimizer to provide you with more application awareness through your rule base and to migrate from a port and protocol rule to an app ID aware rule set. Also, to check if there are overly permissive app ID rules. So essentially, by setting the policy up effectively on day one and continuing to use this for automation, you limit the amount of interaction that your administration users need to do on a day-to-day basis to maintain control. You're making use of the Palo Alto Network's automation tools. So securing the user and preventing credential theft prevention. So when we look at preventing credential leakage, we need to ensure that we can block access to phishing sites. So we want to ensure that the corporate user isn't either on purpose or accidentally submitting their corporate credentials. So that might mean that a pop-up has come up on the screen and the user thinks it's the corporate organization that's probing them for authentication, but in actual fact, it's an attacker. So the system ensures that when that user receives a pop-up from a new at-risk URL, rather than the person typing in what they believe is a perfectly reasonable situation with their username and password, we can set up the system to ensure that we're preventing that, to make sure that their corporate credentials are not leaking outside of the organization. So users' behavior might change, but their role won't. So when we look at Joe, he's a financial analyst. He may be phished, his credentials may be used or abused by an attacker. He may unknowingly install risky apps, and many users within the organization will install an application on their machine based upon conversations with colleagues or based upon a job role where maybe they believe they're just simply being an effective employee. But essentially, Joe may be in a position where he's actually stealing data for personal gain as well. So there are situations where a person who is on the verge of leaving an organization may choose to take the employee database or the database of clients with them because they believe those are their clients and they have every right to take that with them. So, So dynamic users, the idea here is that we want to automate the responses to ensure that they follow the users. And what we're using is the users are added to dynamic user groups to ensure that we can prevent phishing alerts. We can prevent lateral movement. We can decrypt the traffic when it's appropriate. Obviously, there may be situations where a person may be using a banking application that you don't want to decrypt, but we want to ensure that we are decrypting as much information that's flowing across the network as possible. This allows us to enforce multi-factor authentication and block access to critical applications when blocking is appropriate. Okay, so moving swiftly on to application visibility. So this is the what. The business infrastructure these days is hosted on a mix of public and private cloud infrastructures, including AWS, GCP, Azure, VMware, Oracle Cloud, and more. Once you have real-time knowledge of the user, you can secure their application. So when you look at the capabilities that are offered within our platform, effective tagging use ensures that the policy and the application labels that are shown in events making real-time data enrichment possible. So here's how we do it at scale. So the idea here is that both by using some of the automatic tags, but also by adding your own tags, when this information is passed on either to your XDR for investigation or passed on to any onward system, this information makes data enrichment much more possible and much more rapid. So you can see here, our application filters are based on characteristics. We're not looking at ports and protocols. We're looking at using decoders to make sure that we're controlling the real world applications as they're used on the network and as they continue to change. So when we look at how we manage the constant evolving application changes within the enterprise. We natively automate updates from the Palo Alto Network Cloud to ensure that the security is keeping pace with the change of our adversary. The idea here is that Palo Alto Networks is continually evolving our understanding of the applications and passing that information to your systems in an automated manner to make sure that you're working with the most up-to-date information. Okay. And Policy Optimizer. So Policy Optimizer shows the application usage. It's based upon information that's calculated at the top of every hour and ensures that you're continually able to tune your policy. So we're constantly offering you advice about application usage within the policy to make sure that if your policy is overly permissive or is not keeping step with the definitions that are in your organization, the system will automatically offer you advice to make sure that you can make those changes and continue to ensure that you have effective protection. This is just a brief view of our ACC tab, but ultimately the ACC tab shows you a risk view of the applications on your enterprise and shows you how effectively you're protecting the business applications. And this is the where. So essentially real-time knowledge of the user and the application makes it possible to secure the infrastructure regardless of location or hosting platform. The world we all live in today means that the infrastructure you need to secure for your business is based, it may be at home, it may be in an airport, it may be on a smartphone, it may also be on a SaaS provider or on your corporate IT systems. So another way that Palo Alto Networks is offering you assistance is our AIOps platform. So essentially, as we said there, it's proactively strengthening the security posture and offering you best practices. Anybody that's worked with Palo Alto Networks for any period of time will be familiar with the BPA process, where you can take information off of your firewall, you can upload that to our cloud, and we'll offer you guidance on how to improve the effectiveness of these systems. The best practice with AIOps means that you're no longer doing these manual reports and working to follow the recommendations. Best practice with AIOps means that we're advising you in near real time to ensure that you're making those changes before the exposures happen. So in summary, Zero Trust is a strategy to prevent cyber breaches that Palo Alto Networks is uniquely placed to enable. All use cases must be treated the same, and there can be no implicit trust. To deliver Zero Trust, you must have a best-in-class prevention everywhere, and the SOC plays a pivotal role. So, and now I'll hand over to Chris.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Julian, for taking us through that whistle-stop tour of Zero Trust. So, look, we've been talking for the past nearly 10 weeks to 9 weeks today about the different tools and technologies that we have within Palo Alto's networks architecture, particularly around the network security, and how we leverage architecture, particularly cloud-delivered security services, to give you extensive security that can be delivered everywhere. And this is really key, and it's pivotal to the deployment of the successful delivery of a Zero Trust strategy from the network security point of view. You know, we've talked a lot about threat prevention, wildfire, 0 days, but actually the biggest benefits you can get for a Zero Trust is simply doing the hygiene things right. You know, using App ID, using user ID is a key tenet of everything we need to do. And that will reduce your attack surface phenomenally.
And I think it's how you get into it in practice, right? It's like whether you're working at home or a workload in the data center. I like going to the simple example of, here's my web server that accidentally is running a vulnerable version of Log4j. In case something did happen to it, how do I make sure nothing else can come in or out of it, right? If I exploited that vulnerability, I can't FTP the payload out. I can't move lateral movement. I can't move any files.
Yeah. And in that case, particularly just block LDAP, right?
Exactly.
So when you don't need it, just block it. So look, we've gone through a lot of content, but hopefully you guys on the call have found this all useful. As ever, with all of these calls, we have a call to action. So Julian, next slide, please. Yeah, we can run security lifecycle reviews. We can give you a window into your world and how it is working. We can help you on that journey of zero trust. We can identify the applications that you shouldn't have in your environment that you need to get control of. And we can start leveraging the tools you have today. And we can work towards using a strategy to migrate to different tooling. If you want to deep dive into anything we've looked at or talked about over the past 9 weeks, the Beacon Learning Portal is a phenomenal resource where you can get loads of education.
Hey, Chris, one of the things we talked about is where to start. And it's like, let's start with the riskiest of the applications. And I was doing an SLR review with a CISO and his team. They had 56 remote access applications. They had 37 file sharing applications. They had 800 SaaS applications. Let's start with exactly what you said, the low-hanging fruit, and start there instead of trying to boil the ocean.
I had one recently with a customer where we did an SLR because we were trying to focus on what was the network being used for, and they were actually a service provider themselves, and they said, "Oh well, there's nothing on our network. It's all encrypted back to base VPN traffic." And as you said, John, we did an SLR for them. And we demonstrated that there was over 60 applications they weren't aware of on the network.
And I think one of my favorite phrases on zero trust is, where do I start? And I guess the point is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you start. Just make a start. And you don't have to do it all in a day. The principles are that you are going to iterate over time. So just move your posture by 1, and then maybe 2, and then maybe 3, and eventually you'll get to 50. And with the small gains, you will make significant improvements. Okay, so SLRs and Beacon, that's for some learning and some visibility. Let's move to the next slide, please. There's always a question about ZTNA. If I have ZTNA, do I have zero trust? But we got a workshop on ZTNA 2.0, and this is really going to cover some of the technical deployment of ZTNA within the SSE SASE environment. You can click on the link. Sorry, you can click on the QR, go register for that event. It's a brilliant event being run by some brilliant SEs. So you will learn a lot there. And really, ZTNA is a slither of what is a holistic zero trust strategy. Zero trust as a strategy touches everything from people and processes as well as technology. ZTNA is very much a technical implementation of a user ID-based policy into a cloud deployment. So yeah, go register for that on the 11th of July. The next event on the next slide, please, Julian, is a network security summit called Intersect. And there's a variety of topics covered on here. John, I don't know if you want to talk about this one particularly.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a variety of different network security topics, but my favorite one is our CISO, Niall Brown, interviewed together with Anand about how he's implemented zero trust here at Palo Alto Networks. So forget everything we've said over the last 10 weeks, hearing it from our CISO for how he started, exactly where he started, how he does it. I think that's such a valuable part right there. And that's on August 2nd coming up. And again, you can listen to the recordings. There's deeper dives into cloud identity, identity into applications, as well as into data center and IoT security. So great follow-on session.
Yeah, absolutely. And these recordings of these sessions will be made available to everybody. So I just see the question coming in from the panel. All right, onwards. The next slide, please. So the survey is really important. If you want to talk to us, please complete the survey. If you want to give us feedback, complete the survey. If you want to add things into the next series of webinars that we're building right now, please add the feedback to the survey. Your feedback is a gift, and we welcome it all. And also, we just want to hear your opinions. What worked, what didn't work. We can always make things better. If you want to get a demo of anything we've talked about, if you want to engage with sales about anything we've talked about, then please leave your full name. Sometimes people are posting as anonymous and we can't get back in touch with you. Okay, the next one, please, Julian. Competition winners. All right. So I'm going to quickly rattle through this because of time. So third place, Jeremy Doling. Congratulations, Jeremy. Well done. Second place was Sarah Main. Jeremy and Sarah, I think we're going to have to put a handicap on you. And then Michael Wright, congratulations, you won the competition last week. Good effort by everybody. Actually, participation rates last week were phenomenal. So congratulations to you guys. You will receive an email like this, and I am chatting with Mushkan right now, and she's confirming that these are going to go out hopefully by the end of next week. If you're a quiz winner, you will get something like this. If you are not, it is likely phishing. Do not click the link. If you don't receive an email from us and you are a quiz winner, please, you have my contact details. Please email me, let me know, and we can get back in touch. Okay, superb. Moving on to the next one, please. Please log into the Menti quiz and I will quickly get this started, and fingers crossed there will be no gremlins today.
You want me to stop sharing?
Okay, just 2 seconds and we'll get that started. All right, so everybody should be able to see my Menti instructions. Phenomenal.
Yep.
Okay, I'll give it some time for people to join the quiz. We're up to 33, 35 now. If you could please join with first name, last name, then if you are a winner, we can easily find you. Palo Alto people, usual rules apply. Do not play the quiz, please, Palo Alto people. It makes it difficult for us to hunt you down. Okay, we're getting to 50, 55. We'll give this another moment. I think 60 is about the average that we get for this quiz. All right, let's get started. Okay, we've hit 60. We'll move on. Excellent. So, you know the rules by now. We've been doing this long enough. Answer the question as quickly as you can. There'll be 5 questions. This week, we'll be revealing the winners straight away at the end. Let's see how that goes. Hopefully, it will work well. So, look, good luck, everybody. Oh, I see a question before we get started. Is there a question we need to answer? Okay. The panelists will pick up the questions. There's nothing related to the quiz. We'll get going. All right. Answer fast, get more points. Who was the first to introduce zero trust? Okay, we're getting close to everybody answering. If you're paying attention, you will know it was Stephen Paul Marsh. John Kindervag popularized the term zero trust, but actually the concept of zero trust came from Stephen Paul Marsh in the security testing world. Okay, let's see. We've got 14 people got that one correct. It's a good leveler to start. Let's see who was paying attention. All right, Chris Steligish. Sorry, made that one. And Frederick A. Congratulations to you guys. We shall move on. Question 2. What is the key to successful enterprise zero trust? SOC team. Trust Larry, the SOC engineer. Integrated identity and NIST. We'd all like NIST in our zero trust enterprise, that's for sure. Correct. Integrated identity is absolutely critical. If you cannot assert the identity of a user or an asset or an application, then it is impossible to do zero trust effectively. Correct. So 47 of you getting that one right. We will move on to the results. So what's that done? So Rory, great result. Frederick A still up there, and Saeed performing really well on that one. So done to the leaderboard. So Saeed takes top spot. Frederick in second, and Maurice in third. Okay, question 3, team. Are we ready? All I need for zero trust is strong passwords. True or false? Wouldn't that be amazing if you could just solve it with strong passwords? So simple, yet so ineffective. I hope that most people get this one right. All right, Correct. 56 of you got this right. You do not just need strong passwords. You need lots of assertion of identity and most importantly, understand what you're protecting and who you're protecting it from. It's critical. So let's see how this affected things. It's tight at the top. It's very close. All right. The leaderboard remains largely unchanged, though. It's strong performance from the top three, with Doritheos coming up from further down. Okay, number 4. What is the first step of zero trust? Talk to the CISO, define the protect surface, monitor and maintain reports, and talk to your account team. I would welcome any conversations about this in the account team. Feel free to get in touch. Okay, yes, exactly right. Define the protect surface. Understand what it is you're protecting. Is it a server? Is it a container? Is it a group of servers? Is it a subnet? That will help define how you architect your zero trust network. Okay, phenomenal. Our last question. Oh, sorry, the leaderboard before we go on to the last question. Stays the same. Well done, you guys. You might be speed readers. So there's no change at the top. This is consistent performance. Question 5. This is where it might go wrong, but yeah, never work with live demos and children. Last question, and we'll reveal the winners at the end of this. What is the biggest vulnerability in your business? Okay, weak passwords, Larry the SOC engineer, implicit trusts, unpatched applications, and public networks. So implicit trusts, Larry the SOC engineer, unpatched apps, public networks, and weak passwords. All right, you are absolutely right. Implicit trust. So implicit trust isn't exactly what it seems, right? It could be that if you're in different locations having different controls in place, there's a different level of trust. And it's that implicit trust that we need to be rid of to streamline security, but also to deliver better outcomes. Okay, let's take a look at the final standings. So Eric coming up in third on that one. And Frederick was the winner. Maurice, you were second, and Eric, you came in third. Congratulations, just pipping Rory there at the last minute. So team, that is it for today's session. This has been a monumental effort behind the scenes. We will be in touch with the winners with your prizes. Thank you to Julian today. Thank you to all the other speakers that presented, too many to remember to list. Thank you to Mushkan, you've been instrumental in the back end, but most importantly, thank you to everybody who joined. Oh, I shouldn't forget my panelists. My panelists have been brilliant. Thank you so much for supporting this event. Most importantly, thank you to everybody who's taken the time to join this call and spend it with your time with Palo Alto Networks. Your time is precious, and we appreciate you spending the last 9 hours with us. But thank you. We will be back in the autumn with a new cyber series. We will be in contact with you when that is going to launch. And it will also have the full agenda so you guys can see what it is we're going to present on. And hopefully that will be as interesting and stimulating as this one. So once more, thank you so much. And